Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Cranky Gun Reviews. I've mentioned before, I don't really like talking about politics on my channel. It's just something I'd rather try to keep my videos light and fun and informative, but this is something that I just can't not talk about. So I put a community post up the other day about Massachusetts Bill H.4885 that got rushed through the House and passed and signed by our dictator of a governor, Maura Healey. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about what the implications of this bill are. So for those of you that live in Massachusetts, I don't know how much you've been paying attention. Cape Gunworks is another YouTube channel here in Massachusetts. They've done a really good job at covering this. They've gone on a bunch of radio programs and talked about this. Gun Owners Action League, or GOAL, is another Massachusetts-based group that's done a bit of work on this. And the reason that not a lot of people know about this bill is because it was submitted at something like 8 or 8:30 p.m. one night, and it was voted on the next morning. So those people that were watching these bills come through only had a few hours to actually review this before it got rushed through. It got signed, and then it sat for about a week and a half. It got signed by the governor. And basically, there's several things that this bill entails. It is the worst gun control bill that has ever been passed. And I urge those of you who are in Massachusetts, if you haven't registered to vote, please register to vote. There are certain groups in the state, Gun Owners Action League, again, Cape Gun Works, and a few others that are actually working on putting a question on the ballot in November to reverse this bill. But here's some of the highlights, if you want to call them that, of the bill. One, from what I can understand, and the details are a little bit mixed, the original wording said something like it's banning all semi-automatic firearms that the manufacturer designed to hold more than 10 rounds of ammo in a magazine. And then it also added some forbidden features to the list, things like a shroud on the barrel, anything on a semi-automatic firearm that would keep you from burning your hands. They added that as another evil feature. So right out of the gate, basically, almost every single semi-automatic mag-fed pistol, shotgun, and rifle are out. They're not allowed anymore. So again, there's still some discrepancies on that of things like the EC9S, LC9S that were only designed to have 7 or 9 round capacity out of the factory, or a Smith & Wesson Gen 1 Shield that was only designed for 7 or 8 rounds of ammo, or 1911s. There's still some discrepancy as to whether or not those are still going to be allowed, or if it's flat out banning all semi-automatic pistols, rifles, and shotguns. So that leaves a little bit of clarification that needs to be done. Bans all build kits, 80% lower kits, any firearm lower kit that you could buy, strip lowers, any build kits where you could buy the lower frame and the upper as 2 separate parts and then assemble yourself and registered. Pretty much all of those are banned from what I can see from the bill. It expands the red flag laws. It expands additional training for people that want to get their license to carry. You have to have live fire training now. Somewhere I read that now you need a license to carry in order to be able to purchase any ammunition, any firearms, which I thought we had anyway, but apparently there was still some legacy, I forget what they call them, federal, like a firearms card or something like that. There was a different card that you could get years ago that allowed you to have like a shotgun or some bolt action rifles, but not a license to carry. So that, as far as I know, has been gone. They're allowing you to keep your pre-ban standard capacity magazines, but they changed the law such that if you keep a standard capacity magazine in your house loaded and you use it for self-defense, if somebody comes beating your door down at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you use that to protect yourself, God forbid you have more than 10 rounds of ammunition in it, then you're in trouble. So you can keep your standard capacity pre-ban magazines, but you have to store them unloaded in your house and you can only use them at a range. Some weird stuff with that. I think they changed some of the transportation laws to say that a locked glove box in your car now does qualify as a locked device inside of your car, so you don't have to carry a second safe inside your car. Again, you can make your decision on whether that's right for you or not. Ammo sales are by brick and mortar stores only. They're disallowing person-to-person sales of ammunition. Again, there's no way to track that, so I don't know how they plan on enforcing that. They're making it harder to get your LTC, again, with more training and things like that. They want all firearms to be registered. So basically, there's kind of a rule on the book that if you moved here from another state, say you lived in New Hampshire, you moved to Massachusetts, you brought firearms with you into the state, you didn't technically have to register your firearms if you owned them before you moved into the state. Now they literally want a registry. They want everybody that owns any firearm, whether it was hand-built from a kit, whether it was purchased from a brick and mortar store, whether it was a gift from a family member, whether it was something that you owned previously and moved into the state, they want all of those guns to be registered. So that's only touching the tip of the iceberg on this bill. There's a lot more stuff in there. It's huge. It's something like 117 pages long, but it's horrible for this state. And I've said it multiple times, whether or not in this video or just in open forums and conversation with people, I cannot believe this state, Massachusetts, which is where the American Revolution started, based on things like the British government telling us that we can't have our own firearms. We started the American Revolution in this state, in Massachusetts. Paul Revere's ride, Lexington conquered. There's so many historical things inside this state that started the freedom of our country. I cannot believe that these liberal politicians have gained enough foothold to be able to write these stupid bans on things and sign them into law. They're completely unconstitutional. So again, this is kind of a public service announcement for those Massachusetts residents here. If you're not registered to vote, register to vote. I've heard so many people in my lifetime say, well, it's just one vote, it won't count. If 100,000 people who said it's just one vote, it won't count, registered, we could probably turn a lot of the elections. In my little town, it's like 8,800 people in my town. Our elections are like 49 to 51% red to blue every single year. If there was a couple hundred people in my town that weren't registered, that registered to vote and voted one way or the other, they could swing every single election. So please take the time, learn about the new laws. I mean, the whole reason I wanted to make this video is I don't really know how my channel is going to progress. I've always tried getting cool guns, and whether they're old or new, I've always tried getting stuff that interested me and stuff that was maybe popular to do reviews on, to test out, to do side-by-side comparisons. I don't know how my channel is going to change in the future. I'm still waiting to see exactly what the law is going to allow in the future, whether it's only like revolvers, lever action rifles, bolt action rifles, slide action rifles, and slide action or pump action shotguns. That might be all we're allowed to have in this state until we can overturn these rulings. And from what I've heard, again, we're going to try to get a question on the ballot in the 2024 election to reverse this rule. But part of the problem is the Attorney General of our state writes the wording for that, and the Attorney General is basically in the pocket of the governor. They're both very anti-2A. They want to make Massachusetts the most restrictive gun state in the country, and they've pretty much succeeded to do that without having any public comment, without having anybody opposing them. They just put this bill in at 8 o'clock at night, voted on it the next day, and it went through. The governor signed it. It's horrible. It's horrible for this state. So please pay attention to what's going on in this state. Get out there and vote. Make sure that you know what's going on with this. And again, in the next couple of weeks, maybe the next month, I'm going to go visit a couple of shops around here, try to see if they've gotten better direction from the governing bodies to find out what they can legally sell. And, you know, in the future, what we'll be able to purchase for the channel. I can say I'm very happy that I have bought what I've bought in the last couple of years. I did kind of buy quite a few firearms in the last couple of years, some more modern ones, some older ones. Have another video coming up, which will be titled something like The Last Gun I Bought Before the Assault Weapon Ban of 2024 in Massachusetts. Not something that's crazily surprising to anybody. I did want to get something like the new Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 380 2.0. I'd love to get one of those. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get one. If this bill gets reversed in November, it would be great. If it doesn't, it's going to take years for people like the Firearms Policy Coalition and other groups to sue the state. And they've talked about really they're only going to be able to go after certain parts of this bill at a time, not a wholesale thing. So they'll have to have a plaintiff attacking one version of or one portion of this bill, and then another plaintiff attacking another portion of this bill. It could take 3 to 5 years before this stuff actually gets reversed. So again, I apologize. I really don't like doing political stuff on my channel, but I can't sit back and watch this. I've had so many people say, why don't you just move out of that crappy state? Oh, it's a crappy state, time to move. That's the problem, is people running away instead of actually fighting the rules that are being imposed on us that are completely wrong, against the Constitution. I can't up and leave this state easily. I live very close to the New Hampshire border. I'm 5 or 6 miles away from the New Hampshire border. I could easily move if I wanted to, but I have 2 kids that are in our school system in Massachusetts. I've lived here my entire life. I'm well established in my house. I'm well established at my job. All of that is in Massachusetts. So while I could move over the border, I would rather stick around here a couple more years and keep putting my vote in to try to return to what we had previous to 2016, before we had the original copycat assault weapon ban that Maura Healey, who then was the Attorney General, put on paper without any cause for recourse with anybody else. She just decided she was going to implement it as a public safety thing, and that hasn't really stopped anything from changing. Criminals are going to get guns. Criminals are going to use them however they want them. All this bill is doing, and this new ban is doing, is limiting the rights of law-abiding citizens, making it harder and more expensive for law-abiding citizens to get guns to be able to protect themselves, and making archaic firearms, revolvers, lever actions, bolt actions, the only thing we'll be able to get. So it'll make it harder for us to protect ourselves if we ever went into a state where something went haywire and the state decided that they were going to do confiscations, or anything, God forbid, happened larger scale than that. It would make it harder for us to protect ourselves. So I urge you again, don't just run out of the state. Stick around, fight. I've given some money to Firearms Policy Coalition before. I will probably give some more donations, because this is something that I feel very deeply on. This is something we need to stick around and fight. So again, I apologize. This wasn't a very fun, lighthearted video, but it's something I felt I needed to do. Thanks again for watching another edition of Cranky Gun Reviews. God bless America. Support your 2A rights. Get out there and shoot. And remember, fight tyranny whenever you can. Somebody tells you to give up some of your freedom for the greater good. Remind them that freedom is the greater good. And I picked this shirt on purpose, 1776. That's where we got our freedom. Again, American flag behind me. I bleed red, white, and blue. I love this country. I love the freedoms that I've enjoyed my entire life. The ability to be able to make a good living and be able to purchase firearms, make videos for you guys, and enjoy myself doing that. And I want that to continue. So I'm going to continue to fight for our freedoms. Thanks again.